Thank you very much for joining us right here on the India Development Debate on ET Now. I'm Supriya Srinath. And what a day it really has been as far as news flow is concerned. But more importantly, the elections and the much-awaited assembly election results are out. Advantage Congress, it seems, posing a big threat to the Modi government's comeback bid in 2019 general elections. The Congress trounced the BJP 3-0 in the battle for Hindi heartland. In Chhattisgarh, the Congress decimated the Bharatiya Janata Party, winning two-thirds majority, while in Rajasthan, the party is all set to form the government, leading in at least 105 out of the total 199 seats. It is a cliffhanger in Madhya Pradesh, where the Congress is leading in 113 as we speak right now. The BJP on 110. All eyes are now on the BSP and the SP, which are likely to play the kingmaker in Madhya Pradesh. In Telangana, it is a clean sweep by the TRS led by Chandrasekhar Rao, while the Congress surrendered its last bastion in northeast region to NDA ally Mizo National Front. Dubbed as the semi-final ahead of the big finale in 2019, state poll results will have a huge bearing on the Lok Sabha elections next year. And that's exactly what we are debating right here on the India Development Debate this evening. I've got a stellar panel joining me right here. Representing the Congress is Sanjay Jha, representing the BJP is Gopal Krishna Agarwal. I've also got Swaminathan Iyer, a consulting editor, R. Jagannathan, editorial director for Raja Magazine, and joining us also on the show, making his debut, Milan Vaishnav, Senior Associate, South Asia Program, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. So thank you very, very much, each one of you, for joining us. And Swami, if I may begin with you, the verdict is out. It seems Advantage Congress, the BJP losing the Hindi heartland, failing to make a bit of a dent in Telangana. The question, though, is this disillusionment against the BJP, or is this a vote for the Congress?
It is both. But I would say, above all, it's a defeat for the BJP. I think this comes out most clearly that, the big battleground that the Congress was preparing for was Rajasthan, where it just squeaked through, Madhya Pradesh, where it's not quite clear, and yet the greatest victory was in Chhattisgarh, which was an anti-incumbent, anti-BJP vote. So I would say it is more an anti-BJP, anti-incumbent verdict being given by the people. If that is so, this does not bode well for Mr. Modi in 2019, because he's going to be the incumbent. He's going to have to answer to that same sour mood that we see. Now, it is possible to overcome that same sour mood if you're an exceptional person like KCR in Telangana. But he, of course, had the advantage of a huge fiscal bonanza after he took over Telangana, and the revenues boomed. He was able to do the Raita Bandhu outright grant of 8,000 rupees per acre per farmer. So, he was in a very special position in a new state. And with that kind of thing, an incumbent can win. But in other places, you generally see anti-incumbency being a strong trend. I did a quick calculation that in the Hindi heartland, even if Mr. Modi is able to pick up two-thirds of the seats in 2019, it means a loss of 55 seats. Because last time he won more than 80% of the seats. That's right. So in other words, he's on a sticky wicket. He's definitely going to lose ground. I would say the BJP is definitely going to be short of a majority in 2019. The question then still remains, would they be able to cobble together a coalition? Or would, in fact, there be a much more disparate coalition?
Swami, you make an important point there about the Hindi heartland. And if I may quickly go across to Milan Vaishnav, who's joining us here. Milan, what went wrong for the BJP? Seldom do you find a party losing momentum going towards elections. And that's what seems to be happening with the BJP in 2019. What's gone wrong? What are the factors? Is this all going to be anti-incumbency? Is this all farmer distress? Is this a lot of euphoria that was there, which is now on the wane? What would you put your finger on as far as elections 2018 are concerned? What has led to a defeat of the BJP in the Hindi heartland? And remind you, the viewer, 65 seats come from these three states, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, and 62 of those seats are with the BJP right now. Milan.
Yeah, I think, look, it's hard to put your finger on any one thing, but I think if we see the initial results, clearly the Congress Party did very well in rural areas. This is a continuation of what happened in Gujarat in 2017, where, yes, it's true, the BJP was able to come back to power, sustaining their foothold in Gujarat, but the Congress outperformed them in rural areas. We're seeing that again if you look at the rural-urban divide in the big Hindi belt states. Even though the Congress may have done it slightly better in urban than the BJP in some states, the rural gap has shifted. So I think that's certainly a big factor. Of course, we've heard now for months stories of agrarian distress, about low commodity prices, and so on and so forth. The second factor is, I mean, it is true that despite whatever headline numbers we're seeing on the economy, there is a lot of unmet, unfulfilled expectation where people feel that that the BJP, the Modi government, the BJP state governments would have delivered more when it comes to job creation, employment, investment, and so on. And we know that that's been a mixed picture. So I think both of those factors have hurt the BJP. But let's not forget that there is a distinction to be made between state and national polls. The BJP strategically has not put Mr. Modi out there as much as in previous state elections to try and protect his image. He is going to try and has every incentive to cast the 2019 vote as a presidential referendum. And so that's something that tells us that the immediate or very easy translation of the state results to the national results is going to be much more complicated this time.
I couldn't agree with both you and Swami more than this, but I will go across to Jaggi. And Jaggi, let's put a counterpoint in the view. And I think one of the issues that Milan raises is an issue that's very important, and I think it needs to be deliberated upon, which is the Modi magic. He had the ability to come and turn around an election. Look at what he did in Gujarat. He did 30-odd rallies there. He did 27 rallies in Karnataka. He somehow was very curtailed in Rajasthan and also in Madhya Pradesh, just about 10 rallies and then 11 rallies in the other state. So my question really is, it also didn't change the situation on the ground. The narrative was a little fatigued. He wasn't offering hope. It was all about, the family. It was all about, it was never, there was no accomplishment being spoken about. What has happened? What has gone wrong? Because for the first time, we are seeing that a man who could shoulder the campaign burden, the campaign trail, turn around an election, is not being able to do that.
Actually, if you notice the difference between Gujarat, Karnataka and the current round of elections, the critical point was actually Modi took a little more of a backseat in these elections than he did in those. Gujarat, of course, was a must-win situation for Modi for the simple reason that he hails from there, and if he loses Gujarat, the BJP would have been in deep trouble. And Karnataka was where he invested a lot of time and energy, and he managed almost single-handedly to turn the election around towards the BJP, though didn't cross the halfway mark. In these elections, if you remember, earlier there were rumors floating around that they will try and merge it with the national election and all that, but somewhere the party's internal polls told them that they were on a weak wicket in these things, and trying to mix the national election with the local election would cost them plenty. So there was a deliberate effort to separate the two results, so that when the assembly elections become a standalone, and then after this Modi can then focus on 2019, and that's precisely what has happened. And the results bear the BJP's internal expectations that it would have been very tough to retain these states. They would have hoping at best to have retained one, maybe with luck two, but as it so happened they have lost two, and the third one is up in the air, not yet fully decided, but trending towards the Congress. So I think it was a good call on the part of the party to not mix the two elections up. Now you can say, okay, these are state incumbency, anti-incumbency issues here. Now the issue is Modi, our own performance at the central level, and we are looking for a different kind of mandate. They decided to separate the two. That's what has happened.
And my own presumption is that that is going to spell trouble for the opposition. So it's only fair I go to Sanjay Jha before I go to Gopal Agarwal. And Sanjay, the people are dissatisfied on the ground, and that is there for all to see. My own sense was, and a lot of our polls were telling us, a lot of people who were on the ground were telling us that the expectation from the Congress was a lot higher. We've been speaking to a lot of senior Congress leaders also who say we were expecting to have done a lot better than we did. In terms of absolute numbers, Rajasthan, you've barely scraped through. That's a state that has given 165 to the BJP. There was palpable tension on the ground. There were issues that you could have understood. What went wrong? And, I just think and I kind of agree with Jaggi, the BJP and the Amit Shah Modi duo is not going to sit back and take things lying down. They will give it all it takes to now focus on 2019. And which is why the question is that why the Congress is perhaps going to form the government in the 3 states of Hindi heartland. Kudos to that. But the reality also is you could have done a lot better than what you have finally. I can't hear Sanjay.
Yes, we are feeling enthused, energized, and we are extremely bullish about our prospects. But the fact of the matter is that tomorrow is a new day, and we're going to work towards 2019. Supriya, let me tell you this. I agree with you that we could have maybe had a bigger margin in Rajasthan. But then, because our potential to win was high, we also had a lot of candidates who wanted tickets, and those whom we couldn't give tickets to. Obviously, there are only so many people who can fight in election. Many of them become rebels, and therefore, to that extent, you do take a dent. Now, these are certain realities of Indian politics you have to live with. But let me answer your question in brief. As far as the fundamentals of this, if you look at all the 3 states put together in the Hindi heartland, the message is very clear that there are common problems across the 3 states. It's joblessness, it's rural distress, it's very poor governance, corruption, and attacks against the Dalits and the minorities. And therefore, there is a consistency in terms of the results that you're going to see. Many people thought that we will sweep Rajasthan, but Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh is going to be a formidable challenge. I'm not saying that any election is easy. I'll tell the BJP they have fought a very good election considering they had a 15 years anti-incumbency. I have no hesitation in telling that to Mr. Agarwal. But the fact is that there is only so much you can do with headline hunting and trying to recast GDP numbers, or to claim another source of data to say there is no job crisis, or to continuously call the farmers urban Maoists and say that a movement against the government on MSP or doubling of farmer income.
Sanjay, allow me to come in with a question.
So somewhere down the line,
Sanjay, allow me to come in with a question, please.
Press conference that they are divorced from the ground realities.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, Sanjay, give me the chance to put in a question to Gopal Agarwal. Gopal Agarwal, is this a wake-up call for your party? Is there too much rhetoric and the governance seems to be lagging? The sense that one gets is there is a disconnect from the ground realities. The sense one gets is there is denial as far as the farmer stress is concerned. And I'm now going to devote this segment to, specific issues that were pertinent in these elections. Let me put the first one to you. Is there denial of farmer stress? Is there denial of rural distress? And that is perhaps telling on this verdict. Are you at least going to accept today that you need to give it far more focus than you have so far?
No, I don't. Definitely, I don't say I don't agree that there is a complete denial of farmer distress. Every time I have been saying, everybody is telling that there is a problem with the farming sector. Agriculture income has to be doubled. Farmers are in a very bad shape at many places. Government, what we are telling is that in 4.5 years at the center and the states also, government has done a lot to improve the lot of the farmers. And there is a historical baggage that is being carried through the farmers' distress. So whenever we are telling that we are doing so much for farmers, we don't say that the farmers are not at a difficult situation. We agree. So there is no denial, and therefore we have set up a target of doubling of farmers' income. We are talking of MSP, 1.5 times of MSP. So I don't say that the problems in the economy have not been identified. We do not acknowledge them. We do not recognize. Not alone it's the farmer distress, but there is a problem with the banking sector also. Those problems we have acknowledged, and GST is one of the way that we are talking of resolution of those problems, and PSB 59 is a issue through which we are talking of resolving the MSME sector's problem. Creating employment is an issue. So all those economic problems, we have never tried to deny them, never tried to put them below the carpet. And unless you acknowledge and recognize the problem, how will you work towards the solution? So, the first thing that we have done in 2014.
Okay, Gopal, give me a minute.
We have identified.
Okay, Gopal Agarwal, I'll come in there.
whether it is twin balance sheet problem or missing link or agriculture
Fair
distress
point.
or-
You're now repeating yourself. Gopal Agarwal, let me come in there. I will go across to Milan Vaishnav. Gopal, give me a minute. I'll come back to you. Milan Vaishnav, will you agree with me when I say that this election has been fought substantially on a very vile political rhetoric, but the reality is that the electorate has had economic issues in mind. Whether it's jobs, whether it's development, whether it's growth, the electorate doesn't seem to care about your gotra, about your religion, about the temple even so much. The electorate wants gainful employment, and that seems to be a resonating tone. You know, something that we call an aspirational revolution, that is perhaps coming out very clearly in these elections. Will you agree?
Look, I think if you look back at the trends over time, you see very clearly the emergence of it's the economy stupid kind of voting. People think it's not present in India. It is very much present, and I think the data suggests that. And that trend has become more salient, I would say, post the 2000s. The trouble is, if you're the BJP as the ruling party, and your performance on many of these scores has been mixed, it's not so easy to go on the hustings and campaign on the back of those issues. Hence, there's been a pivot to alternative things, whether it's Ram Mandir, whether it's social welfare and various social schemes, whether it's personality issues. And so there, I think the Congress and the opposition smell blood and have spent a lot of time talking about rural distress and economic woes. The only challenge I would put out for the opposition is it is not clear today what Rahul Gandhi or the Congress would do if they were in power. It's perfectly fine to have a negative approach, and that makes sense if you're trying to diminish the incumbent. But I think as we head towards 2019, I do think that the Congress and its partners, if they do develop at a state-by-state basis, are going to have to put together a more of an affirmative agenda as opposed to a purely anti-BJP one.
I couldn't agree with you more, and you're actually cueing me to my next question to Sanjay Jha, and I'll go across to him in just a bit. But Swami, I have a more relevant question also to ask of you. India is seeing an aspirational revolution. I think 2014 was all about hope. Mr. Modi whetted the appetite of a country that wanted development. He won this election decisively, rode to power with an absolute stunning majority. He made some very irrational promises, and which is why there was irrational exuberance. We are now seeing that those promises obviously can't be lived up to. But, there's a country that's hugely aspirational. Is this going to be a big dilemma now for the political class, for political parties, for our political leaders to not be able to match up to an aspirational India?
Well, on the one hand, a leader needs to enthuse the masses. When I went around Eastern UP, Bihar in the 2014 election, I asked villagers, whom will you vote for? They were saying Modi, Modi. I said, but what will Modi do for you? They said, Modi will give us jobs. And I scratched my head in amazement, and I said, a man who has created this kind of enthusiasm will surely win in 2014 and will surely lose in 2019, because there's no way he's going to give all these people jobs. So yes, he promised a lot. He has not been able to deliver all that. I would say it's gone even worse on the agricultural side. I think it was a terrible mistake to announce that they're going to have these new, very high minimum support prices, which are going to give a 50% return on purchased inputs and family labor use. This is completely disconnected from ordinary economics, from ordinary common sense. Nevertheless, the question was he able to deliver? And he failed miserably. In the current Kharif season, the prices are nowhere near these new minimum support prices. In some ways, it is better not to promise than to promise and then not deliver, because that makes you look incompetent. So I would say that, Modi has, yes, overpromised. He's suffering by overpromising. Having said that, let's also admit that if he's done 7% growth, by international standards, he's doing quite well. By international standards, it is the fastest growing economy among any major economies. But the problem is that it is not significantly faster than UPA growth. And he had promised significantly better growth. He had said there's going to be Achhe Din. Very definitely, he has failed to deliver on growth. He has failed to deliver on jobs. He has failed to deliver on minimum support prices. He is therefore going to pay a price for all this. Does it mean he will be voted out of power? I'm sure the BJP will fall short of a majority. But it's still an open question as to whether he will have a better chance of cobbling together a winning coalition or Rahul Gandhi. I think that is very much an open
Question in just a bit, but I do want to talk about the economy, however stupid it may be. And Jaggi, for the first time, there seems to be this, sense that jobs as an issue has surpassed price rise as an issue. I mean, election after election in India, government after government has been voted out on account of Mehengai ki maar. That seems to have given space to jobs, and which is why I raised the question of an aspirational revolution. You know, this whole demographic dividend that people talk about, India being the youngest nation by 2022, you need to employ them. And which is perhaps why are we seeing jobs replace every other issue, which is paling in comparison to the one big issue. Joblessness, whoever addresses this will be voted in. Whoever shows us hope will be voted in. If they don't deliver, they're going to be thrown out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why you don't think inflation is a problem is because this government has been particularly successful in keeping inflation down. We have not had runaway inflation for all these 4.5 years, and even the previous NDA had the same success. It was the Congress years that gave very high inflation a problem. So there are two things here. One thing is the aspiration quotient of the average Indian has risen dramatically. Remember, in the age of Reliance Jio, where you are going to have everybody at less than half a day's Manrega wages is going to have 1 GB of data free every day. He is going to know what's happening, who is wealthy, who is going to do that. So the information that what you are going to, what you can aspire for is now available to even the average rural villager. There is no longer a disconnect between the prosperity of the rich and the aspirations of the poor. So this gap is so wide that even with the best of growth, you are not going to deliver. The other thing I found while I researching my book on jobs was that the link between jobs and growth is broken in India, and it's very, very clear that nobody has an answer to that, because it's the employment elasticity of growth has now come down to almost 0.1% from about 0.4% about 15 years ago. So we are generating 1/4 the amount of jobs with every percentage of growth. So we should forget this obsession with growth and macroeconomics and focus more on jobs, jobs, jobs. You need a trickle-up theory on jobs. You have to try and remove all the regulations that prevent you from creating jobs. As long as you keep obsessing about growth, you are not going to deliver anywhere in this country, because I think that business link between growth and jobs is gone.
Okay, give me a minute there, because I'm going to take this question straight to the Congress party. You have criticized Mr. Modi. You have, you can punch holes in his argument, in his rhetoric. All of that is fine. You are expected to do that as an opposition. But you can take this so far and no further. There has to be some alternative agenda that you've got to put at the table. 2019 cannot be hit and run. You attack him and then you run away. You've got to tell the people of this country what is your economic agenda. How do you plan to create the jobs? How do you plan to, bring in the reforms that the Congress party very, boastfully says, you pioneered? How are you going to do all of that? Because we don't hear that from the Congress party at all. Sanjay.
Supriya, let me share with you, I don't have to, but I will share with you some private information. We are already in the process of aggregating not just data, but putting through a very strong paper, which will be a workable proposition to alleviate this big, serious job crisis. If you heard Mr. Gandhi today, he spoke and he said that when you look at the agricultural problem, when you look at the employment challenge, these are structural issues that can't be fixed overnight. Now, as far as the Congress party is concerned, Mr. I think Jagannathan talked about the fact that during our time inflation was high. Of course it was, because oil prices were touching $145 a barrel, unlike Modi's time where it touched $27 a barrel. But does Mr. Jagannathan know that the real wages during the time that the UPA was in government, I'm not saying the entire 10 years, for a period of a significant 6 years, was growing at nearly 6%, which was the highest in South Asia. So you may have lower inflation during the time of Narendra Modi's government, but you haven't had jobs, so you haven't even had income there, but income also hasn't grown. So you have a very serious crisis where new jobs haven't been created, and those who have jobs, many of them are in the gig economy, and many haven't seen even a nominal growth. But to answer your question, I think one of the things we have already hinted, Mr. Gandhi has gone public with it, it's not a secret, that we will be focusing a lot on the micro, small and medium enterprises. We believe the large companies in India and all over the world are going for automation,
Please tell the country about
intelligence,
it.
drone, big data, and I think that cannot be stopped. But let me tell you, we are going to focus significantly on one, the issue of trying to give a big boost to the small industries. Number two, we are going to look at a lot. We will probably reactivate FDI in multi-brand retail. We will try and make sure there is a lot more investment happening in cold storages, in transport infrastructure, in logistics, in the farm to fork model. Because you know the multiplier effect of this has never been seen, because Narendra Modi's government put a stop to it.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, give me a minute. I will go across to Jaggi before I go back to Milan and Swami. Actually, I'll go back to Gopal Agarwal. Gopal Agarwal, I want to come to you.
I want to
say
say
that has
something.
been raised on the show is... I'm coming to you only, sir. Give me a minute. Let me articulate my question. My question to you really is that the time is too short now for a structural reform in agriculture. You said initially that, you know, we will introspect, we will see. There is a fear out there, and there are many stakeholders who are now voicing this concern that will this verdict make the government, you know, turn in the direction of populism? Will this verdict encourage, will this verdict tempt you to do things like that? You know, higher MSP for farmers, a universal basic income, you know, farm loan waivers, throwing the fisc out of gear. Respond to that before anything else.
No, yes, the first thing is that good economics is always politics. That is our first and foremost criteria that we are working it. And welfare of the common man, welfare of the backward classes, welfare of the remote areas is what we have been working tirelessly over 4.5 years. And we also know that this welfare schemes, etc., can only come through the economic development. Government needs resources. So these are aligned, and we know and we understand that, and that will be done. 2-3 points I would like to mention is that in 2014, Modi ji was not elected to manage things. He was there elected to transform things. And that time we have created a performance matrix. What lacked in India was there was no accountability or implementation of the schemes. That was an important area, and Modi ji has created performance metrics with regard to every sector, and he has been able to deliver on many of them. There are some areas which we will do. When ease of doing business was 142, he talked of rank of 50, and we are in a position to now achieve it. And you see how was the aspirational India was lacking, aspirations of the common one were subverted, is that people were running after getting
making to our economy if we are in the top 70 or top 80. No, Gopal Agarwal.
Yeah. No,
Gopal Agarwal, aspirations is not about being in top 100. Aspirations is about having gainful employment, is about, you know, being respectfully employed. No, I don't think so. I don't know if being in top 100 is going to make a significant difference to the lives of people across this country. But I take your point. I take your point that transformation won, and now you know, the momentum. But Milan Vaishnav, there is a fear out there that this verdict, and especially combined with what has really happened at the RBI, the exit of a governor, seemingly on issues where the government was pushing the governor or the RBI actually to transfer reserves, to look at excess liquidity in the NBFC space. Given all of this and marry it with what has happened today, there is concern, there is fear out there that the government may be tempted to open the spigots on lending, on you know, on boosting economic activity, the impact of which will not just stoke inflation, but will throw the fisc out of gear. Are you somebody who believes that populism is going to be the name of the game here in Delhi?
I think it would be very unwise for the government to pursue that course. But I mean, look, we have to look at the events of the recent weeks and months and think about where they lead us. We see the appointment of certain individuals to the RBI board. who are trying to push the RBI in a certain direction. We see the resignation of Dr. Urjit Patel. We see the appointment today of Mr. Shaktikanta Das, who is a former IS officer who was very close to this regime, who helped to implement demonetization, who is seen as someone who's perhaps more flexible, someone the government can work with. And so I think the government is going to have to try and do something to quell some of this anger, some of this disenchantment, some of this rural distress. And I certainly think populism is a way to go. They may consider going that route, but I think that will have much longer term adverse consequences. And so I hope that they choose their course very wisely. You know, I think one thing that is very apparent is it is not clear who in this government represents their sort of core economic conviction. Who is it who constitutes the real brain trust that is going to help them navigate what little is left of their term? And even beyond that, when you think about 2019, have we heard yet from this government what they would like to do? What are their top 3 priorities if they were to come back with a renewed mandate? And I think right now what they seem to be doing is kind of careening from one ad hoc approach to another. And I think that does not spell a very fruitful approach for the Indian economy headed into 2019.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there. They need to articulate their economic priority and agenda, especially because we're going to be staring at 2019. I will take a really, really quick breather. I'm back in just a moment because we have to put the spotlight now to where it belongs. The cues for 2019, allies, what does this mean for Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party? Are they celebrating a tad too early? All of that and a lot more is coming up in just a minute. Please stay right here with us. Okay, let me come back and quickly address the big elephant in the room. And Jaggi, I'll come to you and then go to Swami on this. The whole temple issue or you know, outrageous remarks that were made by the big mascot, Mahant Yogi Adityanath, all of that seems to be issues of diminishing returns. People don't seem to care about them. Will there be course correction, you believe, from the point of view of pushing that agenda, you know, for the BJP? And because, you know, the Congress is obviously following suit and playing the whole soft Hindutva card as well. But do you believe, given the fact that this is an issue of diminishing returns, will there be course correction? Will those issues perhaps be pushed to the background? Or do you believe these issues will actually be accentuated going forward to 2019?
Happening before 2019, and this issue, the more the BJP rakes it up, the more it will lose. I can understand that the party is wedded to the construction of the mandir, and that can remain a long-term hope, and hope that the court, if it court gives a verdict, they can go ahead with it. But the point is, if they think they can do something before the election, I think it will be definitely a problem for the BJP, but because they are not going to be able to deliver it, and they will actually needlessly raise hopes, and it will lead to bigger disappointment after the elections when they can't deliver it. So what are they going to do? So I think and also this particular issue has resonance more in some parts of Uttar Pradesh. It doesn't necessarily have resonance in the other parts of the country. I can understand that you are wedded to it, but that's okay. But you have to play it smartly. You cannot just keep bringing it up every now and then and expect that all the Hindus will rush and vote for you. It's not going to happen. There are other issues. Hindus also have 90% of their demands may not relate to the mandir. They want jobs, they want better prices for their produce, whatever it is. Those are what even the average Hindu would want. So I think you need to focus on that. And I think as long as Mr. Modi focuses on what he can deliver and what he can proposes to deliver future, he will actually do better than if let's say allows people like you know, some madcaps in the party to come and keep on talking about the mandir which they cannot deliver.
Okay, fair point indeed. Swami, the question has to be shifted to one of allies and alliances. And before I go to the political parties to ask on that, How surprised are you with the fact that the BSP and SP went separately in Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan? And look at what that meant. That meant a loss of nearly 8 odd seats because the anti-BJP votes were in some sense taken away from by the BSP in Madhya Pradesh. And those 8 seats could have the others 10 or 12 seats could have well been under the Congress's tally.
No, I think what's very clear is that there is no such thing as a united anti-BJP front of all parties. They are all in it for themselves. The reason why in Uttar Pradesh, Mayawati and the Samajwadi Party got together is not that they loved each other, they hated each other, but they said, you know, as an piece of opportunism, will this work? It worked. If they think that same opportunism will not work in other places, they will go their own way. In Uttar Pradesh, Mayawati definitely sees the BJP right now as a contentious foe. But you know, she has been in coalition with BJP in the UP governments more than once before. So post-election, if she sees a chance of getting a very high position with BJP support, might she go that way? Yes, she might go that way. So I'd simply say that, you know, there is no firm anti-BJP front. There is an opportunistic front in various places, and whether these fronts will survive after the 2019 election is over, I will not take that for granted. I have seen many of these alliances form before an election and then splinter after the election. I think this is a matter of worry for the Congress party. It's one thing to put a thing together, but suppose at the end of it, suppose you have a situation where the BJP has, shall we say, 200, 220 seats. Congress has 120 seats. Will all the smaller regional parties necessarily go with the Congress with a core of only 100, 120? Would they prefer to go with the BJP, which already has a much higher sum? It could go either way. So at this point of time, I would say the 2019 election has a large number of uncertainties. And one of the uncertainties would be, is this Mahagathbandhan going to actually last fully in all the states? And if it does, will it actually survive post the election?
Sanjay Jha on this very question, because Sanjay, the question always comes up that the organizational ability or the cadres, at least in states like Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, where you're in direct contest, all very good. But in places like Bihar or in UP, where the dominant players are people or parties like the SP, BSP, the Congress will have to play a junior ally. Are you willing to be in relationships with them? Why could you not forge an alliance in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh? And the onus for that cannot lie on a junior ally in Madhya Pradesh. It couldn't lie on Mayawati. The onus to bring her on board or SP on board should have been on you. They say very in a lighter way, but somewhere it's true. The Congress never misses a chance to miss a chance. And it will be true given your present tally right now in Madhya Pradesh.
Supriya, first let me just refresh Mr. Swaminathan Iyer's memory. You know, there was the same old speculation about the fragility of an alliance in 2004. But the fact of the matter is between 2004 and then again in 2009, we ran the most successful coalition. We in fact also exploded the myth that you need a majority government to deliver on high growth. The growth given by both UPA 1 and UPA 2 has been far better than what Narendra Modi has delivered in the last 5 years. So these are facts on the ground. So let me answer your question. Where the head-to-head contests are concerned, you are getting a very clear signal from today's results, Supriya. You include these 3 states which have 65 Lok Sabha seats. Now think about Haryana, where I can guarantee you that the Congress will win. There is Himachal, there is Uttarakhand, there is Maharashtra, where we both are likely to have our own alliance partnerships. You're going to see a significant diminution of the BJP votes. It's going to happen, and that's why Mr. Gandhi said in today's press conference that for the BJP, it's going to be a Herculean task to make those numbers up. Now, let me answer this other question. You talk of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The Mahagathbandhan is a work in progress, Supriya, and it's going to be a reality. Give you example of Uttar Pradesh, Gorakhpur, a seat that was considered to be absolutely unassailable. What happened? Kairana, Phulpur in Uttar Pradesh, You had
contest with the
BJP
SP and
losing
BSP
after
there.
having won those seats by over 3 lakh votes. So when a coalition
Yeah, but
will
Sanjay,
happen,
Sanjay,
well, let me tell you, as
Sanjay,
far
let me
as
come in
Madhya
there.
Pradesh,
Sanjay, I come from that part of the world.
yeah, I'm answering your question.
Sanjay, I come
Okay.
from that part of the world, and it puzzles me that why did the Congress not join forces with the SP and the BSP and contest Gorakhpur and Phulpur? Why did you make a fool of yourself by contesting both these seats and losing so miserably? You know, I agree with you that it was their bastion, it was lost, but it was lost on account of SP and the BSP. You could have been a partner, you chose not to be. But I will take a quick question to Gopal Agarwal, because I have another substantive issue to ask of all our experts here. And Gopal Agarwal,
One more
62 out of the 65 seats in these 3 states of the Hindi heartland are, are with the BJP. You have to win North. You have to win the Hindi heartland. You've not been able to make a deep dent in the South. You know, everybody keeps quoting Northeast. All of Northeast put together is 25 seats. If you have to come back in 2019, you've got to win the North, the Hindi heartland decisively. Where will the numbers come from is my big question. You extrapolate what has happened today, and like Swami was pointing out a little earlier, you will actually end up losing nearly 45 to 50 seats in the 3 states here. UP is not going to give you 73. What happens? Where are those seats going to come from?
2 points I will mention here. One thing is that these are the state election, and that will not be translated into 2019 election. There are different agenda, and there Mr. Modi himself will directly contest, and it will be for electing Modi ji or not. So there will be a different agenda, and these states will also vote in a different manner, that we are sure. But in addition to that, we are working on several areas. Northeast is one area which you have pointed out. There is West Bengal. On 8th, even our president and everybody from senior leader have started working on the next day of the finishing of the election in Rajasthan. Ground level everywhere.
Supriya, can I make a
working
point?
very hard in West Bengal. We see substantive win there. And second thing is Odisha. We are going to do good. There are areas like Kerala where we are expecting huge support for BJP in South. So we are exploring new areas. I told you Odisha, West Bengal, Northeast, then South Kerala, and even in the some areas where we will form new coalitions.
Any cephalogist worth his salt.
We are in a
Okay.
very good position, and strategically very strong.
Gopal,
Yeah, one more thing, that our whole
you know,
approach
any
towards
cephalogist
Andhra,
worth his
that
salt is
would
going
be
to
when
tell
we
you,
shift
Gopal
our
Agarwal.
policy from
Gopal Agarwal, I'm going to make a
benefit to
point
the
here,
populace.
and a very pertinent point. Please listen to me. Any cephalogist worth his salt is going to tell you what you're going to lose in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, and Uttar Pradesh cannot be made up with Kerala or West Bengal or in Odisha. These are not states that you are going to do as stunningly as you did in some of these states. You maxed Rajasthan. You have 73 out of 80 in UP. I don't know where that confidence stems from, but good luck with it. Jaggi, you know, my larger question, and I want to raise this here, is that the BJP is likely to go down to 200 in 2019. And which is why a lot of people are losing sleep over the price of regional parties. The price of alliances, the price of allies is going to go up. Is 2019 going to be a test of what we had seen in the 90s, you know, alliance making, opportunistic alliances, political blackmail, some sort of horse trading? Are we going to go back to that political regime that India has gone through?
Yes, absolutely. And let's be very clear, our political alliances are seldom based on principle. Principles come after you have decided where you want to go. If you tomorrow decide to join NDA, you will say, I am all for political stability, that's why I joined them. If you want to join the UPA, you will say, I am against communal forces and join. It's the statement that is made that is convenient to you at that point of time. So all political alliances are brittle. It is a matter of arithmetic. We will go back to the coalition era, assuming Mr. Modi doesn't manage to pull out a rabbit from his hat in 2019. I think even if the BJP is down to 200 and odd seats, I think it has a reasonable chance of returning to power with 4 or 5 major regional allies. And the fact that a party like TDP has been trounced and TRS has won is actually an advantage for BJP, because you now can actually have an ally who might win 15 seats, and if TDP loses in Andhra, you might get another ally with another 15 seats. So you see, actually what is happening is, at some level actually these coalitions are a reality, and it's probably a good thing, because I think it widens the base of the government in power. Because with 31%, if you have a majority, then it's far better to be less of a majority, but with a wider coalition that will end up having 40 to 50% of the popular vote. That has greater sanction. I think it's a good thing.
I've got the last 3 minutes left on the show, and Swami, I will come to you. Markets typically are very wary of coalitions. They like majority governments. They think it's decisive. But there is obviously a fallacy in that argument, and that is not entirely true.
Well, I'll simply say, if you look at what's happened in the last 25, 30 years, I mean, Modi's has been the only majority rule. Before that, we only had coalitions. The bulk of the economic liberalization, the bulk of the reform, the very fast growth period, all this took place under coalition governments. So I do not think it can be said that markets are afraid of coalition governments. That is just not true. Markets have done extremely well under coalition governments. What will happen right now, I think is not, so I would not worry about that aspect of it. However, I will say this, that if you see the performance of Indian markets, they tend to be correlated with that of emerging markets in general. We like to believe that we are sui generis, everything that happens in India is only because of India. No. If you look at global flows, you will find that as emerging markets bob up and down, the Indian markets also bob up and down. The current conditions are not very good for emerging markets. The problem does not arise in places like India and China, but it does arise in a large number of other areas which are under distress with chances of spreading. It is equally true that most people are expecting the United States to slow down significantly in 2019, and the EC and the Japan are not paragons of fast growth either. So if you're going to have slower growth overall, if you're going to have rising interest rates by the Fed in the USA, these are not good conditions for emerging markets in general. And to the extent that emerging markets are not going to be in good humor, the Sensex will not be in good humor either. And we should not attribute this to coalitions or some local event.
Give a closing word for a change to the Congress party, because they often say the winner takes it all, and since you have performed well, I think you deserve the closing argument on the show this evening. The question is around Rahul Gandhi. He did a press conference. He said, my biggest moment and my most telling memory of my political career was 2014. I figured out where I was wrong, what I didn't need to do. Mr. Modi's taught me a lot. He came in and thanked the states and the chief ministers, the outgoing chief ministers, for their contribution. It's been often said, has he arrived? Is this his moment? Can he be the fulcrum? Has he been able to fill the shoes? Has he finally arrived?
Well, let me tell you one thing, Supriya. I have said it before on several channels. Mr. Gandhi is the marathon man. He's a long distance runner. And long distance runners very often are solitary, you know, they run on their own, and you know, people very often don't figure out their potential until the acid test happens when they come to the finish line. I do believe that he's so gracious. I thought he started by complimenting the outgoing chief ministers, which is the kind of political discourse we need. And I can tell you this, not just because he's my leader or I'm very fond of him, but I think this is the kind of political leader India needs. Today our political discourse is nasty, is vitiated, is vitriolic. I think Mr. Gandhi brings to our conversations a maturity, a dignity, a certain standard, which is the way we ought to be on TV channels and in our public statements. And I think that is a hallmark of a leader. And I think something that he said, Supriya, is what we should all pay attention to. He said, listen, our job is not to talk. Our job is to listen to what the woes of the people are. And I do believe that when there is a new Prime Minister sworn in 2019, it could be somebody we are talking about.
2019, you mean? But anyways, I think I take a lot of pride in the fact that I do one of those shows, and at least we put together, aim to put together a show that doesn't do mudslinging, that gives everybody an equal opportunity to talk, and we do a fair and balanced analysis of where the Indian economy and Indian politics is headed. But on that note, thank you very much, gentlemen, for this fascinating discussion on elections 2018. Can't thank you enough for your time this evening. 2018 has thrown up a picture. And I've been saying this since morning, and I'm going to sound repetitive, but I will say this once again. The Indian electorate is aspirational. The Indian electorate cares more about his living conditions, cares more about his employment. He wants to be gainfully employed. He doesn't want to live in the misery that his parents lived in. And if political parties can give him the hope, can kindle that hope, they will be voted into power. If they fall short of expectations, they're going to be voted out. Every political party must take a cue from this. You may have won today, the Congress party, but you will have to walk the talk on meeting those aspirations. To the BJP, I will say, it's time to go back to the drawing board, do the soul searching. The mandir may be important to a few people and a cross section of this population, but the job in hand matters a lot more. Thank you very much for being with us. Swaminathan Iyer, R. Jagannathan, Milan Vaishnav, Sanjay Jha, and Gopal Agarwal.